Pablo Escobar is the most dangerous gang leader in history. From one of the poor youths living in the marginalized neighborhoods of the Colombian city of Medellin, to sitting on the throne as the seventh richest man in the world for 7 consecutive years according to Forbes magazine, with a net worth estimated at $30 billion. The total profits reached $100 billion, including money buried in various parts of Colombia, earned from cocaine trade and money laundering. He is also considered a reference and role model in the world of mafia and drugs, having managed to establish a strong and dangerous empire that terrifies anyone who hears its name. It adopted the motto, Plata o Plomo, which means, take the bribe or die by a bullet. He was the first to invent the idea of guerrilla warfare to expand influence and monopolize the production and export of cocaine to all countries of the world, especially America, to control 80% of the global drug production. His empire included 400 houses and luxury villas spread all over the world, private planes, a zoo with various exotic animals, and he had his own army of soldiers and seasoned criminals. At the same time, he was known for sponsoring football clubs, and his charitable projects and assistance to the sick and needy made him beloved by the poor and gained him wide fame and unparalleled sympathy from the people. His gang was notorious for violence and corruption, which led to the deaths of more than 10,000 citizens and his mafia rivals, including Colombian police officers, army generals, and judges, and state employees and journalists, as well as the assassination of the Minister of Justice and the country's main candidate, Luis Carlos Galán, in the year 1989, which led to pursuits by many security and intelligence agencies around the world. Pablo lived a life of kings filled with pleasant surprises and dramas similar to action movies, which is why many series and films have been made about his story. Pablo Emilio Escobar Gaviria was born on December 1, 1949, in the Colombian city of Rio Negro, and he was the third among his 7 siblings. To a father who worked in agriculture named Abel de Jesus Dari Escobar, and a mother who was an elementary school teacher named Hermilda Gaviria, he was known since childhood for his intelligence and boldness in doing anything forbidden, mastering the art of cunning and deceit in his elementary school. He always told his mother and family about his dream and strong desire to become a millionaire, to lift his family out of poverty, and to live a life of luxury and opulence. And in his teenage years, leadership traits began to appear in him as he managed to gather a group of his friends and then put them under his control at his high school, Lucrecio Jaramillo Vélez. They started their small criminal activities, which included selling fake lottery tickets, selling exams, and forged diplomas that were supposedly issued by the independent Medellin American University, and lending money at low interest rates. In the year 1966, they committed other fraudulent and criminal acts as Pablo Escobar and his small gang stole tombstones, then restored them and sold them to local smugglers. And when the city's residents protested against him, he justified his actions by saying that the gravestones belonged to cemetery owners whose clients had stopped paying for maintenance. During this period, Pablo Escobar succeeded in high school and moved on to complete his studies in the College of Economics at the Latin American University, but he did not show interest within the university and decided to drop out due to his family's deteriorating financial situation. He devoted himself to his personal and criminal activities with his small gang, who developed their skills. Then they moved on to other criminal acts within the streets of Medellin, and they started stealing cars and dismantling them, and sell them as small parts and pieces, allowing Escobar to gather enough money to bribe civil service employees to alter the information of the stolen cars so that the police records of the cars being stopped would disappear during this period. And in the year 1971, the police arrested Pablo Escobar Following the violent robbery, assaulting citizens and causing chaos in the city, he gained a bad reputation among people. He entered Medellin prison, where he spent only a few months. Due to his strong physique, daily exercise, and reading books in prison, his ideas and ambitions developed. And when he was released, his criminal activities changed, and he began recruiting new criminals to kidnap and detain important figures and wealthy people in the city to demand ransom from them. He kidnapped an influential official in Medellin and then released him for a ransom paid by his family, estimated at $100,000. He would kill some of the hostages despite receiving the large ransom amount he demanded from them, as happened with the businessman Diego Echevarria Misas, whom he kidnapped and eventually killed, despite Pablo Escobar receiving a ransom of $50,000 from Diego's family. These huge sums he collected from kidnappings enabled him to expand his influence in the world of crime and enter the cocaine trade. Then he started working with the famous smuggler Alvaro Brito in the year 1972, who was selling drugs all over Medellin. From here, Escobar's drug trade journey began. He gained more fame when he killed the drug trafficker Fabio Ochoa Restrepo in the city of Medellin, with the aim of expanding his influence in the cocaine trade to take his place and customers from him. And he was able to develop his trade, which became the largest cocaine trade empire in history. To further increase his activity, he made drug barons work under his control in every area, surrounded himself with hundreds of loyal friends and relatives with criminal records, and named his gang Sicarios, Pazonmai, Dan, Azopiridi. After his trade flourished, Escobar developed drug transportation methods by purchasing 15 new large airplanes and 6 helicopters, and he began flights between Colombia and Panama to smuggle cocaine into the United States, such as the state of California and South Florida. After that, Escobar bought 14 kilograms of the coca plant from the country of Peru, reprocessed it and turned it into paste in his home laboratory in Medellin. And the first time he smuggled cocaine into the United States was inside airplane wheel tires. In the year 1976, Escobar and some members of his gang were arrested when he was returning from Ecuador to Medellin because he was carrying 18 kilograms of cocaine. Initially, Escobar tried to bribe the judges to acquit him of the charges against him, but they refused. After that, he ordered his men to kill the police officers, those who arrested him, and thus the charges against him were dropped, and he was able to get out of prison this time, which led Escobar to deal with the authorities with the decision plata o plomo, meaning take the bribe or you will die by bullets. After that, Escobar, Pacho Herrera, Chippy, and the Ochoa brothers gathered and founded the Medellin Cartel, a unified criminal gang for smuggling cocaine from Colombia to the United States of America, European countries, North Africa, and Asia, and it also includes scattered groups of Canadian, European, and American individuals. Those who play a role in shipping and facilitating the transport of cocaine to countries around the world. Due to the success of their business activities, the Medellin cartel's profits quickly reached approximately $60 million a day. After the demand for cocaine increased in America, Escobar and his partner Carlos Leda decided to establish a new shipping point in the Bahamas, specifically on Norman's Cay Island, located south of Florida. And it was specifically for receiving cocaine shipments coming from Colombia, which sends about 80 tons monthly. Then Escobar decided to buy most of the island's land, including the airstrip, port, hotel, and boats, and established a warehouse for cooling and storing cocaine, making it a center affiliated with the Medellin cartel within the United States. To expand the influence of his trade, he bought 2 small submarines to send cocaine shipments to Mexico, England, Spain, the Dominican Republic, and countries in Asia and North Africa. And through the profits Escobar gained from the Medellin cartel, He managed to buy 50 square kilometers of land in Puerto Triunfo, where he built his famous farm, Hacienda Nápoles. He hung the first plane he bought above its entrance and established villas and large properties, 8 swimming pools, and 4 artificial lakes, and amusement parks for his family and partners in the cartel, and a private zoo with around 2,000 exotic and rare animal species, stables for breeding racehorses, sculptures, a bullfighting ring, and a farm with 100,000 fruit trees, employing more than 700 workers and staff. On the 29th of March, 1976, Escobar married Maria Victoria Henao. He was 26 years old and his wife was only 15. They had 2 children, Juan Pablo Escobar and Manuela Escobar Henao. In the year 1982, Escobar entered the world of politics. He joined the Liberal Party, ran in the elections, won unanimously, and became a member of the Colombian House of Representatives. He was a candidate for the Liberal Renewal movement but had to leave it due to strong opposition from Luis Carlos, who was his rival and supported by the movement. In the year 1983, Escobar lost his seat in the House of Representatives, following directives from the Minister of Justice Rodrigo Lara, due to some articles published by the magazine El Espectador about his criminal activities. At the same time, the United States of America was pressuring the Colombian government to arrest Escobar and extradite him. Due to the increasing pressures, he decided to use terrorism and street warfare to defend himself and influence Colombian politics. On the 30th of April, 1984, Luis Carlos was assassinated by order of Escobar, 3 months after being ousted from politics. As a result of these events and the chaos that spread in the country, Colombian President Belisario Betancourt resorted to launching a security campaign to arrest members of the Medellin cartel. Afterwards, the main members of the cartel decided to flee to Panama. In June of the same year, they contacted the country's president to retract his decision, but he refused because the negotiations were leaked to the press. After that, they entered Colombia secretly and officially declared war on the government and revenge for its decisions. They adopted the slogan, "We prefer to die in Colombia than to be imprisoned in America." The first of their victims was the assassination of Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara. In November of the same year, they detonated a car bomb in front of the American embassy in the Colombian capital, resulting in the death of an American employee working at the embassy. During the same period, they expanded their trade and opened new routes for smuggling cocaine through Nicaragua and Cuba, with the collusion of some Colombian authorities whom they bought with money or fear. In June 1985, Escobar ordered the killing of Judge Antonio Manuel Castro Jim, who was responsible for investigating the murder of Justice Minister Rodrigo Lara. During the same period, Escobar was aware of everything happening in the Colombian Supreme Court, which was considering adding a legal treaty to the Colombian Constitution and ratifying it to extradite criminals involved with the United States of America. Therefore, Escobar decided to take revenge. He formed an alliance with a dangerous gang called the April 19th Movement, led by Ivan Marino, providing them with sufficient support. Afterwards, the movement stormed the courthouse, killing 45 judges and 16 court employees, burning all official documents and taking the files related to criminal acts and activities. The actions that Escobar and his partners in the Medellin cartel were doing, such that these files were to be sent to America for their arrest and extradition, including Escobar. Afterwards, negotiations took place for the release of the detained hostages in exchange for preventing the delivery of documents and the Medellin cartel files to the United States of America. In October 1986, Judge Gustavo Serna, responsible for investigating the murder of 2 police officers who had arrested Escobar in 1978, was killed. To prosecute him for drug possession and trafficking, a few months later they killed Sebastian Mello, the head of the anti-drug police, and Guillermo Cano, was the editor-in-chief of Spectator magazine. On the 24th of January, 1987, Carlos Leder was arrested, and Escobar was the reason for his capture and extradition to the United States of America. With this incident, the members of the Medellin cartel realized the danger of extradition and decided to double their strength on the military and economic fronts. They began gathering resources from all drug dealers. Escobar imposed a protection tax on all drug dealers in Colombia, set at 20% of their activity revenues. It was also imposed on traders not involved in the Medellin cartel, so they could confront the state. However, some drug dealers refused the decision to pay the tax on profits, but Escobar, he wanted to assert his control, so he kidnapped many smugglers in Bogotá and ordered the kidnapping and killing of the drug lord Gilberto Rodriguez by Neo Silva after he refused to hand over one of his workers, Samuel Totti, due to problems that occurred between him and Neo Silva, one of Escobar's loyal aides. Due to this crime, the relationship between the cartels was severed, and it created fear among the Barons Rodriguez and Pacho Herrera, who also refused the protection tax decision. A short time later, Escobar's gang attacked Pacho Herrera, who survived but was seriously injured. After his recovery, he decided to retaliate by bombing the Monaco building where Escobar's family lived. The war between the gangs intensified. During the same period, Escobar began a series of kidnappings and terrorist acts against senior state officials. In the year 1988, Andrés Rangel, the mayor of Bogotá and also a candidate for the presidency, was kidnapped and held for several months at a secret farm in Rio Negro. A few days later, the Deputy Secretary General of the state, Carlos Hoyos, was kidnapped while heading to Rio Negro Airport. However, the state's response to these kidnappings was to declare a state of emergency in the country. They began by killing John Jairo, a close friend of Escobar, and launched a ground and air deployment of approximately 3,000 soldiers and helicopters and tanks, and they surrounded the hacienda farm owned by Escobar. Fortunately for him, he was informed by his guards and managed to escape at the last moment. In September of the same year, the Secretary General of the state, Germán Montoya, entered into dialogue and negotiations with gang leaders to calm the situation, and they reached an agreement to issue an amnesty law. However, America refused to engage in dialogue with drug traffickers, so the negotiations were postponed. Since the dialogue did not yield any results, the Medellin cartel decided to wage war on the state again, this time targeting judges, public figures, and state leaders. Their first criminal activity was attacking the official convoy of the Colombian security director Miguel Maricarte, resulting in the death of 21 people. Afterwards, they burned the Mundo Vegan television station headquarters and killed Héctor Valdez, the lawyer responsible for the Rodrigo Lara case. On April 30th, 1989, Judge Maria Helena Diaz was assassinated. On June 14th, Supreme Court Judge Carlos Ernesto was attacked. On August 18th, they succeeded in killing the #1 enemy of the drug traffickers, who strongly advocated for their extradition to America, Colonel Valdemar Quintero, who had the most influence on the decisions of the Colombian state. And because of his assassination, the negotiations between the government and the gangs officially stopped, and the state decided to cleanse Colombia of drug traffickers through war. A group of elite soldiers and police officers was formed as one unit under the leadership of Colonel Hugo Poveda. They went to the streets of Colombia to search anyone for cocaine or weapons. They began arresting some gang members and seizing their properties. The army and police targeted more than 700 raids across Colombia, detaining about 26,000 gang members and drug traffickers. The Medellin cartel responded with a message directed to the Colombian people. Escobar declared in his historic speech that if any ordinary citizen killed a member of the army or police, they would receive $2,000 for each assassination. And this is to encourage the people to challenge the state. They declared civil war on it and prepared more than 10,000 armed men. The state began to face assassinations and terrorist bombings in various regions of Colombia. Terrorism became a daily nightmare threatening the country's stability. More than 300 bombings of government buildings, commercial establishments, and banks occurred in Cali, Medellin, and other cities between the months of July and October of the year 1989. During this exact period, the number of terrorist attacks reached more than 420 attacks, resulting in the killing of more than 400 civilians, and more than 5,000 people were injured. And on the 17th of October of the same year, the Escobar gang bombed 8 political headquarters in Bogotá. On the 21st of October, they carried out another massacre and killed Pedro González, the leader of the Liberal Party, Luis Francisco, a member of the House of Representatives, Judge Héctor Rodríguez, and journalist Jorge Enrique, after he left the studio where he was presenting his news program Mundo Vision. On the 26th of October, they carried out an attack on the Hilton Hotel in the city of Pereira. On the 2nd of November, 19 police officers were assassinated in Medellin, 7 of them in a bus explosion in front of the police headquarters. Following these events, the state reacted exceptionally by attacking the El Oro farm in Cocorná, where Escobar, Ochoa, and Jorge resided. However, Escobar received the news and managed to escape, but some members of his gang were killed, one of them being Fabio Henna, his brother-in-law. 87 people from Escobar's gang were arrested. 5 days later, the Medellin cartel responded to the state by bombing an Avianca plane with 109 passengers and 5 crew members on board, which was heading from Cali to Bogotá. The aim behind this bombing was to assassinate the leading presidential candidate, César Gaviria, who learned about it at the last moment and fled the airport, not boarding with the passengers. Afterwards, Escobar's gang placed a car bomb in front of the police headquarters in Bogotá, killing its director, General Miguel Maza Márquez. The members of the Medellin cartel decided to implement new strategies to pressure the government to open dialogue and negotiations with them, and they kidnapped prominent figures. Indeed, the dialogue began anew. The drug traffickers formed a committee to handle legal negotiations with the state to prevent their extradition to America. However, these negotiations did not provide a solution to the mafia's demands and resulted in a new wave of terrorism. On the 14th of August, César Gaviria assumed the position of head of government in Colombia and established a war front comprising elite army soldiers and police officers. Declaring war on the mafia, he focused specifically on Escobar, starting by killing Gustavo Gaviria, Pablo Escobar's cousin and right-hand man. In response to that, Escobar planned to kidnap members of state leaders, journalists, celebrities from artists, and their family members. He kidnapped a long list of names as hostages and threatened them with violence and weapons to pressure the government by force, demanding the cancellation of the agreement with America or the execution of the hostages. On the 19th of October, 1990, the Medellin cartel carried out a terrorist attack in Medellin by detonating a bomb in front of the police headquarters, killing about 24 security personnel. In January 1991, 26 police officers were assassinated by hired killers. In Antioquia, Escobar's gang killed former Justice Minister Enrique Lomurtra. During this particular period, the government yielded to Escobar's demands to release the remaining hostages as an initial agreement to ensure that the executive authority decided to cancel the extradition agreement with America. After that, they voted in the House of Representatives to cancel this treaty. In June 1991, the government convinced Escobar to surrender himself in exchange for its commitment not to extradite him to America and to sentence him to a reduced prison term not exceeding 5 years. However, Escobar requested from the government to be in an exclusive prison, claiming that he was threatened with death if he entered a regular correctional facility. Indeed, the government accepted his request. She allowed him to build his own prison to serve his sentence, which he actually did by creating the site according to his requirements and building a prison he named the Cathedral with an area of 45,000 square meters, located on a mountain slope 7,000 feet above sea level. And this gave Escobar and his guards a clear view from above of any possible threat. The area is characterized by fog at night, and escape is easy due to the density of the surrounding trees. For the prison guards, they were members of his gang in official uniforms, and the prison itself was a luxurious and comfortable residence for the cocaine king, allowing Escobar to oversee his criminal activities from within and organize parties. He also received his friends and family, considering his imprisonment a personal sacrifice for the good of all cocaine traffickers. When they heard what Escobar said, the drug dealers compensated him for this sacrifice by paying him taxes from their profits. Escobar knew everything happening outside through his extensive communication network, and despite his promises to stop the crimes, his project continued through two partners, Fernando Galeano, nicknamed El Negro, and Gerard Moncada, nicknamed Kiko, who smuggled cocaine to America by first passing it through Mexico. And one day, Escobar learned that his partners had deceived him and handed him less money than required. He considered their deception as a prelude to taking over his empire, so he decided to take revenge on them. When he found out where they hid their money, his workers seized $30 million. Afterwards, El Negro and Kiko denied these false reports and asked Escobar to return their money. Then Escobar asked them to come to the prison immediately, and when they arrived, he gave them a lecture about everything they had done secretly. After the two left the cathedral prison in a state of discontent and anger, they were assassinated, and Escobar began planning to seize all the assets of their organization. So he asked their workers to come to the cathedral prison. Through a secret tunnel Escobar built to escape in case of an attack, the main workers of the Kiko and Negro organization attended the meeting. At first, they thought they would be eliminated, but Escobar told them about the death of their leaders, Kiko and Negro, and asked them to work for him, stating that he was the boss. They would be safe as long as they continued to pay him taxes and hand over their wealth. If they lied, they would be tortured to death. During this period, Escobar's enemies were U.S. President George H.W. Bush and the Cali cartel, who were pressuring the Colombian government to eliminate Escobar forever. By transferring him to another prison to make it easier to assassinate him or hand him over to America for execution, and for this reason his brother Roberto warned him not to trust the government. And this is exactly what happened, as the government requested the Medellin cartel to ensure Escobar's transfer from the cathedral prison to a government-run civilian prison due to George Bush Sr., who threatened to invade Colombia if Escobar was not handed over to America. And the army trucks started heading towards the cathedral prison, and they told Escobar that government officials had come to talk to him about transferring him to Cali prison. Then the army soldiers surrounded the prison by land and air, putting Escobar before two options: either escape or surrender, something he had feared for years. He decided to escape, waiting until 3 in the morning when the thick fog obscured visibility. Escobar and his guards headed to the fence surrounding the prison, and one of his staff turned off all the prison lights. As soon as it got dark, his guards opened the wall with the tunnel that Escobar had previously prepared for emergency escapes. Afterwards, they crossed this tunnel until they reached outside the prison and ran for 3 hours in the dark until they reached a neighborhood called Eslado, and got into a car and headed towards a farm named Memo, which is the name of one of Escobar's trusted friends. Escobar's escape put the Colombian president in a predicament, an unenviable position, as he appeared on television daily, asserting that Escobar was under his control. For this reason, he found no justification for the Colombian people and President George Bush Sr., so he decided to hold a meeting with the American ambassador and expressed that there was no objection to the American army entering Colombian territory to solve the Escobar problem. America accepted the Colombian president's proposal and was pleased with it. It was an opportunity for George Bush Sr. to showcase his abilities to the American people and strengthen his popularity and chances of winning a second term in the presidential elections. This would happen by capturing Escobar, whom he described as the biggest cocaine trafficker in history. After that, the anti-drug forces joined with the Federal Bureau of Investigation in addition to the Army, Navy, Air Force and the Central Intelligence Agency, which managed to intercept Escobar's calls in a plane flying over the city of Bogotá. George Bush Sr. offered a reward of $3 million for information on Escobar's whereabouts. The American embassy in Colombia offered $500,000 to each person who provides important information about Escobar. These offers were broadcast on the radio and official television, with a program showing pictures of Escobar to facilitate his identification. The Colombian authorities took over the cathedral prison and arrested the guards working there. The search for Escobar began by monitoring his phone calls and tracking his movements. The location was identified in one of the neighborhoods of Medellin, and when they approached him, he managed to escape due to the delay in response between the Colombian forces and the American intelligence. This made the intelligence in need of another person to coordinate with. And this person was Colonel Martinez, the head of the search forces who had previously killed Escobar's cousin Gustavo. Martinez was Escobar's arch-enemy and had attempted to assassinate him on 2 occasions, both of which he escaped. The first was in the year 1991, when Martinez was with his family on a trip to Spain and they found a bomb inside the plane and managed to survive it. The second was in the year 1992, when they found a car bomb on the road Martinez used to travel to work. The American intelligence then gathered the information they obtained through the reward program, where an informant told them about the location of one of Escobar's gang members, Prince Alexander, nicknamed Tyson, because he resembled the boxer Mike Tyson. They detained him, but he resisted, so they shot him dead, claiming he died in the clashes. Escobar responded to the attack on the same day and declared war on the state again. His gang killed 6 soldiers from the army, and the next day they killed 9 police officers. Escobar paid a reward of $2,000 for each dead officer. For 7 months, they killed 72 police officers and soldiers working under Martinez's command in Bogotá and Medellin. They were killing them in their homes or on their way to work. During this exact period, Escobar infiltrated the search block headquarters by buying off some of its members, and they would inform him of everything happening inside, which is why they failed to capture him. And one day, the radio intelligence team sent information about Escobar's location to Martinez as they intercepted a call between Escobar and one of his gang members, pinpointing the location. Despite sending the call recording to Martinez, he was unable to recognize the voice, and due to his failure to capture him, he submitted his resignation from his position, but it was rejected after Martinez conducted a secret investigation about the employees. He discovered that one of his employees was betraying him and that some of the information he had about Escobar was false. Therefore, Martinez decided to personally oversee Escobar's communications. However, Escobar was very clever as he used codes and unknown numbers with his gang, and whenever Martinez tried to decipher the code, Escobar would change his strategy. After a long search, America failed to capture Escobar, so they decided to change their strategy. Since Escobar targets the families of his enemies, the American intelligence ordered the same to be done with Escobar because he has strong feelings towards his children. This was observed when one of his rival gangs kidnapped his children, and he tried to save them by any means. As for the second plan, the method of the American intelligence agency that was used a lot in South America, it involves training and arming death squads. At the same time, Escobar suffered many losses. On the 4th of February, 1993, a car bomb exploded in front of Escobar's headquarters in Medellin, completely destroying the headquarters and killing 37 of his workers. 2 days later, his mother's farm was burned. Residences owned by his family were bombed, and his mother and aunt were seriously injured. And days later, his farm in Bogotá was burned, and he believed that those who committed these acts against him were the Los Pepes gang, which was hostile to him, and that this group had vowed to take revenge on him, his family, and his partners. This gang also includes members of the former Medellin cartel and the families of Kiko and Negro. The Los Pepes gang joined the Cali cartel, which provided them with enough support for revenge. They started kidnapping, torturing, and killing anyone associated with Escobar, whether criminal or innocent, focusing specifically on his family, lawyers, and accountants. For these reasons, many drug dealers decided to leave the Medellin cartel and join the thriving Cali cartel during this period, which controls the government through bribery. The American army was declaring in the media that it was fighting drug traffickers in Colombia, but in reality they were helping Los Pepes and the Cali cartel to cooperate with them against Escobar. The attacks by Los Pepes on Escobar increased, with the daily death toll reaching 9 employees and 3 of his escorts, including the director of Colombian police officers who received a monthly salary from Escobar. A warehouse containing historic vintage cars valued at $5 million was burned. And on the 2nd of March, 1993, the search block killed Escobar's brother-in-law. Fearing for his family, Escobar tried to get them out of the country because the threat from Los Pepes was very close to them. But the American authorities intervened to prevent them from leaving Colombia. Los Pepes bombed the properties of Escobar's bankers and lawyers. On the 20th of March, the body of one of Escobar's main lawyers was found with a note from Los Pepes threatening the rest of the lawyers, leading them to resign due to the death threats. Escobar began to retaliate against them with bombs. Facing additional violence from the Cali cartel and Los Pepes, Escobar's gang started to weaken gradually. The leader of Los Pepes, Vidal Castano, nicknamed Rambo, made contact with the imprisoned Orejuela brothers and asked them to abandon Escobar and join him. He told them that Escobar would kill them just as he did with Kiko and Negro, while the brothers were deciding their fate and considering leaving Escobar. The Colombian people protested against the government due to the atrocities of Los Pepes, and the government pretended to tighten the noose on them. Therefore, Los Pepes announced the dissolution of the organization, but the attacks and killings did not stop. At the same time, Escobar was threatening General Martinez with killing him and eliminating all his family members. Despite all these threats, Martinez did not back down from his position on capturing Escobar. During this period, Hugo Martinez began to appear on the Sun. He is the son of Colonel Martinez and works as a member of the special unit of the Colombian police. He was trying a new technique to locate Escobar, but Martinez did not want his son Hugo to work on the Medellin case out of concern for him, as members of this police force were constantly targeted and killed due to the $2,000 reward Escobar offered to the Colombian people for killing these police officers. But Hugo decided to eliminate the threats facing his family by tracking Escobar's movements using devices provided to him by the American intelligence agency, the CIA, which through its devices can recognize Escobar's voice and determine his location, as Escobar used to call his family often to check on them due to the threats his family faced from Los Pepes. They were living in a secret government building after being prohibited from leaving Colombia. Hugo and his father Martinez focused on the phone communications between Escobar and his family. Most of his calls are with his son Juan Pablo. When Colombian intelligence intercepted one of the calls between Escobar and his son, they couldn't pinpoint it exactly due to their use of coded phrases and different radio frequencies, which caused them problems and made it difficult to capture Escobar. With the help of the CIA, Hugo learned that Escobar communicates with his son for 2 hours every day, and his calls start at 8 in the evening. Hugo managed to decipher the words and codes used, but Hugo lost his position as the leader of the surveillance team due to the press attacking Martinez for the delay in capturing Escobar. The Attorney General decided to remove Martinez and put him on trial with Los Pepes due to the chaos and killings that Escobar accused him of. Afterwards, the Colombian intelligence confirmed Escobar's claims when they found out that Martinez was taking bribes from the Cali cartel. Then, the American intelligence intervened in this matter and asked the Colombian government to remain silent. And they told them if this news leaked to the press, it would embarrass them in front of the world. They pressured the Attorney General to remove Martinez and pursue him with new charges unrelated to this event. In October 1993, the government threatened to expose Escobar's family to the public and withdraw the guards protecting them, leaving them vulnerable to Los Pepes. On the same day, Escobar's wife asked the Attorney General to give them time to surrender because she always encouraged him to turn himself in. In October, Escobar's son negotiated with the Attorney General for Escobar's surrender and requested several conditions, perhaps the most notable being that he be imprisoned with his friend Roberto, and that his family be allowed to visit him twice a month. And his final condition was to move his wife and children out of Colombia. Indeed, the Attorney General promised to help them leave the country to a safe place on the condition that Escobar surrender as soon as possible. After that, Escobar agreed to surrender once his family moved abroad. The Attorney General began arrangements to move Escobar's family out of Colombia. During the same period, the authorities asked the ambassadors in Spain, Britain and Germany to refuse the return of Escobar's family to their countries. On the 1st of September, 1993, Escobar was living the final moments of his life. On the same day, he was celebrating his 44th birthday in his new 2-story house, with only one bodyguard, Alvaro de Jesus, nicknamed El Limón, and his cousin Luzmila Pablo, his personal cook. And when Escobar wants to make a phone call, he gets into a yellow taxi driven by his guard, Lemon, in order to disguise and deceive the police and intelligence officers. He also started making long calls with his family. With the great pressure exerted by the government on Escobar, he decided to hide in the forest and began studying a new plan to form a new gang and establish an independent state with himself as its leader. On the 2nd of December, he made a phone call inside the taxi, and after he got out of the car, he entered the house while still connected, with his call lasting more than 10 minutes. And this was the biggest mistake Escobar made since entering the war with the state, because at this exact time, Hugo and his team were able to precisely locate the house, and the CIA helped them and led them to Los Olivos, the city where Escobar was residing. And then they waited until he made the second call, exactly at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when Escobar called his son. At that time, Hugo's members and the CIA began searching and inspecting all the streets and neighborhoods secretly. The scanning device Hugo carried led them to the door of a building. Then they approached the door of the house where Escobar was inside. After that, Hugo stopped using the scanning equipment and began searching among the houses. He noticed a bearded man behind a window on the 2nd floor holding a phone in his hand and watching the traffic. Moments later, the man disappeared into the house. But Hugo suspected that Escobar noticed his white car and became certain that Escobar was inside this house. Then the forces stormed the place. At the same time, Escobar had finished the call. At that very moment, the search forces stormed Escobar's house and fired at the mirror. The members of the forces heard the sound of the lemon god escaping through the window and climbing towards the roof, so they shot him and he died. As for Escobar, he fled to the roof and then hid behind the wall to protect himself from the bullets and decided to escape through the back street. He started running over the wall, but the gunfire was intense from all directions, shattering the tiles and the roof. The search team members even thought they were under attack by Escobar's guards and urgently called for help from their friends. However, they were surprised and shocked to find Escobar dead alone in front of them. They couldn't believe their eyes, and moments later, cries of joy and victory began among them. Roberto says in his book, Escobar, when the search team stormed the house from the basement, Escobar sent his guard, Lemon, to check the situation, but he was killed. Therefore, Escobar went up to the roof to escape through the back street, only to discover that he was surrounded from all sides. And since he vowed to himself and his gang not to surrender and that he would not allow them to kill him, he decided to shoot himself in the head to deprive the government and George Bush Sr. from claiming they killed him. Escobar's body was found with 3 bullets, one in his back, the second in his leg, and the third above his right ear. Roberto believes that the bullet above his ear was a suicide shot. Escobar died on the 2nd of December, 1993. After Escobar's death, the upper classes were celebrating this achievement. At the same time, sadness prevailed among the residents of Medellin, especially the poor, because Pablo Escobar was helping them financially with great generosity, and he built many schools, hospitals, football fields, and churches for them, which is why they called him Robin Hood. About 300,000 people attended his historic funeral, and to this day, flowers are placed on his grave, and his pictures are sold alongside Che Guevara. They are used in humanitarian and political campaigns, and his legend has become part of tourism in Medellin. As for his farm, Hacienda Nápoles, the Colombian state turned it into a museum visited by thousands of tourists annually. Despite Escobar's death, the press and the government considered his death a victory in the fight against terrorism and drugs. As for Escobar's family, in the year 1995, his wife changed her name from Maria Henao to Maria Isabel Santos Caballero. As for his son Juan, he changed his name to Sebastian Marroquin Santos, and they fled from Colombia after failing to find a country that would grant them political asylum. Afterwards, Escobar's wife succeeded in negotiating with Argentina, which received them with personal guarantees, and stipulated that Escobar's son must not engage in drug trafficking or participate in revenge against the Cali cartel or others. On the 28th of October, 2006, Escobar's body was exhumed at the request of some of his relatives to take a DNA sample to confirm paternity of an illegitimate child and to remove doubts about the identity of the body that had been buried for 13 years. A live video of this moment was broadcast on the RCN television network after rumors spread that Escobar was not dead but had hired someone who looked like him to act in his place, and that he was currently hiding, living, and enjoying his money in distant places. And the question that always lingers on people's lips is, where did the billions of dollars and immense wealth acquired by Pablo Escobar, who was the 7th richest man in the world for 7 years according to the famous Forbes magazine, disappear to? Most people think that drug dealers in Colombia seized it, while others believe that Escobar buried $70 billion in various parts of Colombian land, which is why they have not been able to find it to this day. In addition, many documentaries and drama series have been produced about the life story of Pablo Escobar, especially on the subject of the mafia and gangs, as well as the search for Pablo Escobar's buried treasures and their hiding places. Despite the danger of the events that occurred in Colombia, Pablo Escobar is considered a part of Colombian history. As well as part of the American intelligence victories, He is seen by the majority of people as a genius in drug trafficking and a role model in the mafia world. To this day, in many countries around the world, drug dealers and gangs use his magical approach in their dealings to solve their intractable problems. It's plata o plomo, which means take the bribe or you'll die by bullets.
And you, dear viewer, share your opinion with us in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, subscribe to our channel to receive all the latest updates.